Most people waste half their pepper harvest because they only know one way to preserve them. But what if you could turn 1 bushel into 4 pantry stable items that will last all winter and save you money? These are my beloved half-hots. I try to get them at the farmer's market every year. They are so incredibly delicious. They are kind of a hybrid, I think, of a hot Hungarian wax pepper mixed with something else, because in addition to being spicy hot, they are also fruity sweet. They are incredibly delicious. Now, I did start by washing these peppers. Peppers are on the dirty dozen list, and that means that they have tested high for pesticide residue. But we can fix that with a quick soak in some water with some baking soda. Baking soda and water create an alkaline solution that breaks down chemical compounds, making them easier to wash away. So if you give them a soak for about 15 minutes, then you can easily just scrub all the dirt, debris, and pesticides off. And today I'm going to show you how to can these in oil, dehydrate them, prep them for freeze drying, and turn some into a delicious hot sauce. And we're going to start by roasting them because that is the base for all of those recipes. Roasting is the secret to locking in flavor and making skins peel off easily. You can do that on your grill if you would like, but I find that doing that in the oven allows me to get more done quicker, and I'm saving all the caps from the peppers as well. We're going to have to do this in batches based on how many peppers I have. This 1 bushel weighed 19 pounds. And we're gonna split that 19 pounds into 4 delicious pantry staples. The ones that we're gonna dehydrate are gonna be turned into a beautiful pepper spice blend that will be great for dry rubs, chilies, stews, tacos. Because these peppers have been thoroughly washed, I'm happy to keep the caps, and these will go into the dehydrator to be part of that spice blend. I'm just removing the seeds and the ribs. It just peels out so beautifully. Although if you deal with hot peppers, which these are, you might want to wear gloves. I rarely do, and usually end up with some regret. And I've got a towel here because after washing the peppers, they're wet, and I don't want water coming all down the sides of me. Now, these are young peppers. These are the first picking of her season. They turn yellow, then they turn orange, and then they turn red. Like, this one is obviously farther along, but it's just gorgeous. It looks so good in a canned jar recipe, and they are just delicious. But I am gonna still try. I'll go next weekend. I'll go for the next couple of weeks and see if she gets any that are riper. And I've got the oven preheating to 400 degrees. You can roast them anywhere between 400 and 450. I don't want them to burn, so I'm gonna start with 400, and they shouldn't take more than 20 minutes to roast. Do you? Save veggie scraps for other uses like I'm doing with these caps here. That is one way that you can save money and get more bang for your buck. And I think we've got enough chopped down now that we can do our first round in the oven. And while those are roasting for the next 20 or 25 minutes, I'll continue de-seeding the rest of these. We're gonna roast these skin side up because we want that to char. 20 minutes in the oven, and we'll take a look. But those look fantastic. Those are looking pretty good. They're not blistered, but the skin is wrinkled. These ones definitely have more char marks on them. So I think I'm gonna swap the trays around for maybe 5 more minutes. And then we're gonna put them into some glass bowls with some plastic wrap over the top and let them sit for about 20 minutes. That's going to create some steam inside the bowls, which is gonna really help loosen that skin. Look how much we got just from the tops of the peppers. None of this is gonna go to waste. Normally what I do with the tops of the peppers is I chop them down into diced peppers. And so I might do that. I might freeze dry some of these as dices, because what's going into the dehydrator is all gonna turn into a spice blend. And this is a lot. This is definitely a zero waste food preservation day. Even what we got for the compost is going to turn into some beautiful soil. These smell incredible and they look really good. I'm very happy with how these came out. And you see all the steam that's coming out of this bowl? I don't know if you can see that or not, but we're going to trap that in there with some plastic wrap while the rest of these roast up, and that's going to make them super easy to peel. My fingers are burning just a little bit from slicing all those hot peppers. I always know I should put on gloves, and I rarely do, only if I'm dealing with like extreme super hot peppers. A little bit of cling wrap over the top. We're gonna let these just sweat it out in this bowl. Make sure it's good and covered so that steam stays in. Perfect. I'm just gonna set these aside and we're gonna get these loaded onto the trays. I am gonna replace this parchment paper because that's pretty roasted at this point. Now the oven is at 450, so this batch shouldn't take quite as long. This one's popping up, so I'm gonna break that apart so it doesn't get burned on the tip. It's a little game I like to play called Tetris. There, they're all on. 1, and 3. We'll give that a go for about 20 minutes at 450 and see if we're done. Now that we have perfectly roasted peppers, we need to get them peeled. Now I started with 19 pounds in all, and I'm reserving 8 pounds for canning, and I'm doing 1 pound for hot sauce, and then I'm gonna divide the remaining 9 pounds between the freeze drying and the dehydrating. So basically what I need to do is I need to get these skinned, and then I need to reweigh the flesh, and then we'll use a percentage. So it's basically for the canning, it's going to be 8 divided by 19. That will give me a percentage. And then I'll multiply that by the final end weight of the flesh. And then I'll know exactly how much to set aside for canning, and I'll do the same thing with the different application methods we're gonna do. So first, we need to peel. Now these should peel very easily at this point. And I'm going to put the flesh in a bowl, and I'm going to put the skins in the bowl because we are saving these skins. This is going to become part of our dehydrating project, and it's going to turn into a flavorful, full-bodied spice. I think it's going to be absolutely delicious. And this might be a little time consuming, but that's okay because once we get past this step, things are gonna fly by and we will have preserved an entire bushel of peppers in one afternoon. One of the reasons why we washed these so well to get off any possible pesticides is so that we could use these skins in our application today. That one's peeling off nicely. I think you can estimate with peppers after you take the seeds and the ribs out, take off the tops, roast and skin them, that you're going to lose about 30%. That's a general estimate. But I'm gonna weigh them for precision, especially when it comes to the canning part, because I do like to practice safe canning. And I am gonna be following a tested recipe for this. This is a recipe that I found on the National Center for Home Food Preservation, and it allows you to can these in olive oil. So they're marinated peppers, and I love this recipe. I'm down to just my last couple of jars. I canned a whole bunch of this 2 years ago with these peppers, these kind of peppers, and I can't wait to get more on my shelf because I've been using those so sparingly so that I didn't run out, and now I'll be restocked. Now the skin does separate fairly easily at this point, as it is expected to after roasting, but it is still a matter of just peeling it off and then remembering what goes in what bowl. So this is probably going to take me a good 30 minutes or so to get all of this peeled, and then we're going to move on to our first project, which is the canning project. This is going to be a water bath can project, so it's going to be super quick. I'm going to do a mix of pints and half pints, and the processing time for both of those is just 15 minutes. So this is going to be super easy to do and incredibly delicious. You want to remove the skins when canning peppers just because they can get tough. The consistency can be not so nice in the final end product. So that is the reason for blistering and peeling your peppers beforehand, whether you do it on the grill, under the broiler, or bake them. If your peppers are too hot for you to handle at this stage, you can let them sit longer. It's not gonna reattach the skins any firmer than they already are. This is a little bit warm for me, especially since my fingers are already kind of burning from the capsaicin in the peppers, since these are hot peppers, but I'm going with it. What is your favorite way to roast peppers? Have you tried roasting peppers? Or are you thinking now about trying to roast your own peppers? It's not a difficult process, just a little bit time consuming. Now, I did not grow up in a family that preserved food or grew food or even really cooked. This is just what I've learned to do over time. If you have a method that is faster or easier or better, please feel free to drop it in the comment section down below. You could do this recipe with jalapenos, which is how the recipe is written on the National Center for Home Food Preservation. So you have a lot of leeway in the types of peppers that you use here. These are my favorite. Feel free to use your favorite. Almost halfway done with peeling. So I'm gonna just whip through the rest of this and then we're gonna move on to canning. Peeling these took more like an hour and I do regret not wearing gloves. My fingers are on fire. These are much, much hotter than jalapenos or other types of hot peppers that I normally grow in my own garden. I did weigh it out, and so I'm gonna do some measurements here. So this weighed 5 pounds, 10 ounces for just the flesh. And that equates to a double recipe for me for the canning to 2 pounds, 6 ounces. So that's what I have measured out here. So this is what we're gonna be canning. I've just started my canner on a flame to get the water hot. I'll give you a look at what that looks like on the inside. This is a water bath canning recipe. So we're not gonna be pressure canning today. This is a super easy recipe to follow. And again, you can find the recipe on the National Center for Home Food Preservation. I'll put a link to that in the description. So now we need to get some things going on the stove. Essentially, we need to make a brine for this. And in that brine, we're going to put 4 cups of white distilled vinegar. Again, this is for a double batch. 2 cups of bottled lemon juice, 2 cups of oil of your choice. I'm using olive oil, 1 cup of diced onions. I'm going with red onions since these peppers don't have a lot of color to them, and 2 tablespoons of dried oregano leaves, and I have freeze dried here. We want this to come up to a full boil, and then we're gonna start getting our jars ready. And here's what that looks like. So this is how many jars fit in the bottom of my canner. I'm doing 4 half pints, which equals 2 pints. And then I have 7 pint jars, and that's a double batch. Our canner is nice and hot, and our solution here, our brine, is boiling, so we can get started. So I'm just gonna take 1 jar out at a time. I'm gonna dump the first few jars out in the pot to make sure that I have at least 1 inch of water over the top of the jars. And into each jar, I'm going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of salt for a half pint jar or half a teaspoon of salt for a pint-sized jar. So that's half a teaspoon. And then we're going to pack some peppers in here. They can be left whole, they can be in pieces, it doesn't matter. Think about how you might use these in an application. I love these on sandwiches, in eggs. I'm doing pint-sized jars this time because once I open up a jar of these, they just go so fast that I wanted to have some bigger quantities. Because honestly, I could sit down and eat a half pint jar of these myself in one sitting. And then we're going to put in our brine solution to a 1/2 inch headspace. And that means 1/2 inch, fill it until you're 1/2 inch from the very top of the jar. And you definitely want to debubble. So you're gonna move the food around inside the jar. And I've got a cloth napkin here that can help me hold it because the jar is hot. And this little tool here actually has some steps on it to tell you where a 1/2 inch is. It's the second step from the top. And we need a little bit more in here. That looks like it's going to be about perfect. And then this is oil, so it is definitely messy. So I also have here a little ramekin filled with some white distilled vinegar, and I'm just gonna use my cloth napkin to thoroughly clean the top of the jar. You don't wanna go through all of this to have the lids not seal because of the oil. So make sure you totally clean that rim so it's not oily. Vinegar will cut right through it. And then you can put on a new lid and then a band. And for bands, I usually turn it counterclockwise until I hear it seat. And it's hot, so I'm gonna hold it. That's seated, and then just go forward until I can't go forward anymore with just my fingers, and then I just give it a quick little tighten. That's finger tighten, that's perfect. And then we can put this one in the canner and pull out another jar. I went to the farmer's market again, and she did have some more half-hots, so I picked up a few more, as well as a bushel of sweet red peppers. So I'm gonna make more jars of the half-hots, and I'm gonna do the same thing with the red peppers. And I'm hoping I have enough time to do this before work this morning. I'm using all half-pint jars today. 1/4 teaspoon of salt in the half-pint, and some brine. Same exact brine as before. I am starting with a double batch. I don't think I have quite enough peppers for a double batch, but I've got 12 jars here ready. And I think I have enough peppers for 14 jars, but I can't fit 14 jars in my canner. So because this is oil, we are going to really, really clean the rim. Although the other jars did seal, I'll show you those in 12 to 24 hours when we get these cleaned. We're gonna get everything clean at once. What's really nice about this recipe is it's so quick. It's 15 minutes whether you're doing pints or half pints. And the jars are really snug in here. And I'm just dumping out the water. The water in here is getting the jars hot to start. Now, I'm not doing this as a full canning tutorial because this is gonna be a long video, but I do have a canning playlist. And if you look at the canning videos that I did last year, those are full canning tutorials, both pressure canning and water bath canning. So if you're not familiar with canning, if you've never done it before and you'd like to give it a try and you wanna know all the rules, how to do it, you can check out one of those videos. I can pop one of those up right here for you. Just making sure the rim of this jar is really clean so the oil doesn't prevent the compound on the inside of this lid from adhering really well and creating a stable seal. So I'm gonna swap in the red peppers and we're gonna do 1 jar of mixed peppers, which is perfectly acceptable. The recipe states that you can do sweet or hot. So that's the end of those. But I have a whole bunch of red roasted, so we'll get those in. And it says you can cut them or leave them whole. That is pretty full. Take one out. And because I have to go to work this morning, I've got like 10 minutes max to get the rest of these jars filled. I think we're gonna need a little more oil in this one. There we go. And oil did drip on the rim, which means it would interfere with that lid being able to seal. So I'm just going to give it a really good wash with white vinegar, white distilled vinegar, and that is gonna cut through that oil and allow that compound to adhere to the glass jar, which happens during the 12 to 24 hour cooling process. Yes, your lids will most likely suck in as soon as you're done canning. It doesn't mean they're sealed. It needs that 12 to 24 hours to allow that compound to fully cool and adhere to the jar, and that's why you don't tip your jars until the 12 to 24 hour mark, and then it's fine. These are gonna be phenomenal. These are so sweet. I think we have 1 pepper too many in here. So marinated red roasted peppers, come on. I am so happy to be getting this on my shelf. I did the red onions in here again. And whatever's left over in this bowl, I'm just gonna pop in the refrigerator, which is where they were last night after I finished roasting them. These are pretty, aren't they? So our last jar is going in. And I made it just on time. We need 15 minutes to process, 5 minutes to cool before we take the jars out of the canner. I'm gonna show you what they look like in there. And the water, well, because we're almost at a boil, you're not gonna see the oil. Oh, but I did do some video of the oil in the last canning load, so I'll show you that. Perfectly normal. Does not mean that we siphon. It just means that from the brine, there's oil all over this board that the jars are now sitting on, and some of the oil is splashing onto the sides as we fill the jar and test for head space. Our canner is full, so let me show you that. So there's our full canner. As long as that is fully submerged, we are good with enough water over the top of the jar, so we're good. I know this was an unexpected detour, so now back to our original video. Sounds like our canner is coming up to boil. It is. We are at a rapid boil in there, so I'm gonna start a 15-minute timer. I went ahead and got all set up for the hot sauce. This is gonna be really easy. Now the recipe I'm using says to use a food processor. I'm choosing to use my high-speed blender, my Vitamix, because I think that that is just going to make this a smooth sauce without having to press it through a sieve or anything like that. I think it's just going to go a whole lot quicker and easier. I have 12 ounces of the pepper flesh here that we're gonna add to the blender. So the recipe calls for 1 pound of peppers, so about 12 ounces should be right. And to that, I'm gonna add 1 cup of white distilled vinegar. You can use whatever kind of vinegar you want. This is not a canning recipe. This is gonna go straight into the refrigerator. A teaspoon of salt, and everything can be adjusted when you taste it if you want more or less of something. I also picked about 10 large fresh basil leaves out of my green stock. These are sweet basil, Genovese, or Emily basil, gonna be delicious. And then I also went ahead and roasted up an entire bulb of garlic. And we are gonna squeeze those out and put those in as well. I'm just gonna loosen the shell here a little bit because it's still a little bit warm. I had this going while we were working on the jars. I know you should just be able to squeeze it, but it's hot, so I'm gonna be careful. Make sure I don't get any skin. The recipe says 4, and there's about 7 in here. I'm gonna go for all 7. We really like garlic. And that's everything. Making homemade hot sauce, especially refrigerator hot sauce, could not be easier. And the garlic, I just did at 425. I cut the tip off so that all the cloves were a little bit exposed, drizzled it with some olive oil, and cooked it for about 15 or 20 minutes total. And now all we have to do is blend. Now, I don't know how long I'm gonna run this, and you might want yours a little bit chunky or a little bit thicker. We like it smooth. Now, I tried to use all of the nice sunset orange color pieces of pepper flesh that we roasted, but this is still green. It doesn't help that I added the basil in here, which is also green. If you want a more vibrant color, you can use red or yellow or orange peppers. But I'm gonna give this a little taste, just a little. That is fantastic. That basil brings something so incredible to this hot sauce. I've never added basil before. That is incredible. I'm really excited to have that. Let's see if we'll fill both bottles. Oh, Let's see if we'll fill more than both bottles. Ooh, that one's right up at the top. These bottles came in a set of 12 and they're all clean right now. So if I need to use another one, I certainly can. Oh, I'm excited about this. It looks like the color of green Tabasco. I'm telling you, the flavor in here is insanely good. It definitely has heat. It's not too much heat. This will keep us for a couple of months for sure. I think we will have just enough to fill this up. Canner is working away. It has 6 minutes left to go on it. That's it. And we just made 4 bottles of homemade hot sauce. I've pulled out 7 trays to start. I have 9 I can use, but let's just start with 7 and see where we end up. So we're gonna roast some of the, we're gonna dehydrate some of this roasted pepper flesh. I think adding that into a pepper spice is just going to give it a nice smoky flavor. All right, that filled this tray nicely. Now we're gonna do these tops. Now I did chop down a bunch of them that are gonna go into the freeze dryer. Those are gonna be lovely added into, I'm thinking white bean chicken chili this winter, but these will become a nice dry spice. This is gonna run overnight, so we'll finish the video tomorrow. The jars that are gonna come out of the canner here in a minute and a half, they need to sit for 24 hours anyway before the jars are really handled. So we'll just finish in the morning. One afternoon, an entire bushel of peppers has been processed. Look at that. Now I'm also going to add the skins on here. I'm going to dry these out and include them. They're going to offer bulk, but they're also going to offer amazing smoky flavor in here. Oh, there's our canner. So I'm just gonna turn the heat off. I'm gonna let that sit for just a couple minutes and then we'll take the lid off and we'll let it sit for 5. And normally these would be wasted too, but not here. Not at a Better Choice Homestead, where we like zero waste as much as possible. Get the most bang for our buck, as well as for our nutrition. We can just get the door closed. And then I just need to set the temp. I'm gonna go to 125. I'm gonna put 16 hours on here and start. I'm just gonna crack this lid off to the side and we're just gonna let that steam escape for 5 minutes, and then I've put a towel on the counter. We'll be able to just lift them right out of the canner and onto the jars to rest for 12 to 24 hours. Now we can take the lid off of our canner and carefully pull out the jars. Now these are messy. They're gonna be very greasy because of the oil in there. So I'm gonna have to clean these really well, but that's to be expected. That's part of the recipe. I'm not tilting the jar. I'm just letting it drip naturally because that band is not set yet. And if you tip it, you can get the oil between the lid and the jar itself, and then you're not gonna have a good seal. Tempting as it may be, try not to tip your jars when you pull them out. Just let them drip a little bit, and I'm sure they're all gonna be pinging down tight here in just a few minutes. There's one just went now. So I will see you back in the morning when I'm ready to show you the finished jars, the finished peppers for powdering down, and the hot sauce. Here are the dehydrator trays out of the dehydrator. These ran for about 24 hours in all, and they are crispy dry now. So on this top layer, we have the skins, and everything is just gonna go into the Vitamix. You can hear how crumbly that is. I'm gonna crunch these down a little bit because I think it might be hard for the blades to grab a hold of everything. And there's a lot of skins here. As I mentioned, that's gonna give us some bulk. And then I'm gonna show you the jars. Now I know I added a video in here. because this video has gone a full week now, and so I was able to go back to the farmer's market, and I thought, you know what, I'm not gonna do another pepper canning video this year. We're almost done with food preservation. The garden is almost done, almost done. I've got a couple other things I need to do out there, but we're so late in this season. And I did want to show that you can do sweet peppers using that recipe too. And they look so pretty in the jar. So I decided to just throw that one in here. And so I haven't washed even the first set of jars yet. I'm going to show you how I do that. That's one tray. We have 6 more to go. Oh, I'm also going to show you why I like to dehydrate when I make spices. It's going to be a lot in here. This is pretty full. I'm going to show you, I think on the next tray, what the flesh looks like after it's been roasted and dehydrated. It's like fruit leather. It's kind of cool. Definitely different than freeze-dried. It looks like either slices of chicken jerky or fruit leather, but it is dry and crackly. I would like to get all of this in one go if I can. If you are interested in getting a dehydrator and you don't have one, I would recommend the Excalibur. Mine's a 9 tray. I've had it for years and years. It's a workhorse. It works great. All right, so these are our pepper caps that we held out to dehydrate. They shrunk up quite a bit, as you can see. Definitely different than freeze drying, but there is a benefit to this as well. We'll get our top on and hope this works. So last year I freeze dried half pots and turned them into a spice blend, and that's what this is. It has delicious flavor, but it is just one big clump because freeze drying just makes it, oh, they smell so good. It smells incredible, and I do still use this. It's not like I'm worried that I'm gonna get botulism or anything from it because it's not an airtight container and there's not enough moisture in here. So I do still use this. I could dry it back out. It does powder back down, but it's just so incredibly clumpy that I prefer dehydrated because it doesn't do this when you dehydrate for spice blends. So that's why we're using the dehydrator and not the freeze dryer for this. Have you noticed that? Have you tried to make spice with vegetables in your freeze dryer? And did you like it? All right, let's give this a go. Fingers crossed, we don't have to pull out the food processor, but we might have to use this. We should be all powder now. And powder really likes to stick to plastic. I should have, well, I couldn't do the parchment paper trick underneath here because I had to use this, but we did lose quite a bit. And that tastes delicious. Tastes like roasted peppers. That heat is coming through, and so is that unique fruity flavor, both at the same time. I love this. I don't think you can see because it's just so cloudy, but we are up to here. So I think that that will give me at least a full pint, and that will last me quite a while. So project done. My canning funnel is in the dishwasher because I just did those second set of peppers yesterday, and I haven't run the dishwasher yet. So let's see if we can do this without making a huge mess. little mess. Almost a pint-sized jar, not bad. And here we have our canned peppers. Now, some of them are not in the water yet. This does not hold all of the jars that I did because I did so many. But here is from the first batch. So this is one of the pints I did, as well as one of the half pints I did. As far as I know, everything sealed. The buttons have popped down on everything. Here are the ones I did yesterday. It was yesterday morning, so it's 6:30 p.m. So this has been well more than 24 hours. So what I do is, normally, I would just wash these under running water, canning jars. But because these were done in oil, there is like just a thin film of oil on these. It's not bad. You know, my hands are not getting super greasy. It's still a film, and so I wanted to soak them a little bit in water first just to cut through that grease, and then we'll give them a wash here. And make sure that they sealed. And I'm just gonna lay them on a towel once they're done being washed. And I'm gonna just get a little soap on here, and I'm gonna pull them out, and we're gonna wash the jar. I'm gonna take off the ring and just thoroughly wash the jar. Oh, that warm water. It's warm water, not hot, but it feels so good. I'm so cold today. And you should be able to hold it by the lid and have it stay closed if it's properly sealed. So far, so good. And I'll also wash the bands. I like to do that by hand and dry them by hand, and that way they're not sitting in water either before or after in the dishwasher where they could get rusty. So this feels pretty good, and we sealed. I'm gonna let the water out of here. First time I made these, I was shocked, number one, that you could can with oil, and number two, that they actually sealed, because if any of that oil remained on the lid of the jar, there's no way it could seal. But it worked, and I've done it since, and this is my favorite and only marinated pepper recipe. So there's one from last weekend, the first canning batch. When we started this video, the video has crossed multiple days. It's been a long week. I've had so much going on. We're good there. And I'll just write on the jars here what this is, marinated hot peppers or marinated sweet peppers, and then we'll get them put into the pantry, and I'll also date them. So as an example, here's one of my last jars that I had done in 2023. Still good, still looks fantastic, but that is one of my last jars. So I'm so happy to have these done. What do you think? Would you give this recipe a try with hot peppers or with sweet peppers, or maybe a mixed batch would be good, like I did here? I love this recipe. Now I just have to remember to put it in the description of the video like I said I would. I'm gonna go ahead and get the next batch of jars in here, soaking in some soapy water so I can get those washed too, but we're almost done. We're going to take a look at the hot sauce, and we're going to test the pH on that too to see whether or not it could be shelf stable. And on Friday, I'll show how everything came out freeze-dried. I even freeze-dried some of the red peppers that I got, because I got a full bushel, so it was a lot of peppers. So I did about half in this canning preservation method and half in the freeze-drying preservation method. And I won't get these labeled until they're fully dry because I use a Sharpie on them. And you can't use a Sharpie on a wet jar, so they have to be completely dry. But let's take a look at the hot sauce. Well, here's our hot sauce. And as you can see, we've already gone through almost half a bottle. Of course, I did just pour a little bit in this container here. And I'm gonna slide that all the way over to one side of this ramekin. And I'm gonna use this multi-function pH tester, liquid pH tester, and we're gonna test this to see if it would be shelf stable. Can you see how low that pH is? Is it coming through? You only have to be below, I would say 3.5 for safety, and we are under 2. So this could be shelf stable, just FYI. I will get that cleaned and recalibrated. And this is just a generic brand, but I do like testing things like this. Look at this yield. Now I know it was more than one afternoon. We started with one afternoon, and in that afternoon we got 4 bottles of hot sauce made. We got 7 dehydrator trays filled with roasted peppers, diced peppers, and pepper skins to turn this into spicy, smoky pepper spice. We did 7 pint-sized jars of marinated hot peppers, and we did 6 half pints. Oh, actually, I think a couple of these were in the batch with these ones. So then I went back to the farmer's market. Hang on. So this was from a bushel plus what's in the freeze dryer, which you will see on Friday. Then I went back to the farmer's market and I got an entire bushel of red sweets and 1 more bushel of the half hots. And so we yielded a lot more. I was able to put more in the freeze dryer, and we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 of these jars. This one is a mixed jar. Isn't that lovely? Aren't the colors so beautiful? And one that is not mixed. I mean, they're just like sunset. I love them. So I think I am pretty well stocked up on all things peppers for this winter. So thank you so much for joining me for another edition of Sunday Fun Day here at ABC Homestead, where we try to make a better choice for our health, our wallet, and our future every day. My name is Kelly, and I do hope you come back and visit again soon.